simply say to Valentina Gomez that sometimes when people show themselves, you should believe them when they show you. And your reaction to the English-born Home Secretary of my country, Shabana Mahmood, who's a diligent, hard-working, intelligent, decent person born in Birmingham in the Midlands of my country.
It's 1 to 2 billion Muslims.
You're tarring all 2 billion.
That's still too many.
2 billion. You are tarring. Let me finish. You are tarring all 2 billion people with the same brush of being killers and rapists and so on. To which I say to you, that is the purest personification of vile bigotry, racism, and Islamophobia. Why don't you focus on people of all religions
they follow a
who commit
book
heinous
that
crimes?
calls for the murder of Jews, Christians, Hindus, and infidels just because we don't abide, we don't bow down to their stupid rock, Piers Morgan. We don't do that in Christianity. In Christianity, if you want to be an atheist, if you want to worship a cow, if you want to worship a table, you're allowed to do that without getting killed. Because right now in Egypt, a 30-year-old man is being held in prison because he's about to get murdered by the government of Egypt because he is no longer a Muslim. He is now a Christian.
It's just not true.
Piers,
If you don't mind, can I say something here, Piers? Piers, if you don't mind, can I say...
Yes, I'll bring in Sammy Hamdi to respond, yeah.
Piers, I just want to... So she keeps talking about the idea... She keeps talking about this idea of rapists and the like. Piers, I went to the website of the Office for National Statistics and the Bureau of Justice of the Americans. And here you can see, these are all the victims saying who their perpetrators are. And here they say that it's people that they know, it's their family members, it's their friends, it's their acquaintances. Only this small number over here is done by strangers or what she calls grooming gangs. You can see the overwhelming majority are done by those that they know or those or their relatives. Nobody says this is white Christian sexual epidemic. If you look at the population, she says that they're being taken over. This is the population of Muslims in the UK and in the US. In the US, 1.1%, in the UK, 6%. Tell me, where is the takeover that's taking place here? Piers, when you look at the crimes that are committed against Brits, and I'm a Brit, I'm born and raised here, against our sisters and our daughters and the like, here are the crimes committed by Jimmy Savile and Rolf Harris. Nobody says this is white Christian rape. No one says this is a white Christian problem. Everybody says crime has no faith and it has no race. This was committed by vile individuals and justice should be delivered. Piers, when you look at the Office of National Statistics and you see the number of people incarcerated in the UK, you can see that they are overwhelmingly white. But nobody says that this country has a white criminal problem. No one says that this is a Christian problem. Everybody says this is a criminal problem by vile people because crime has no faith and crime has no race. Piers, when you look at the mass shootings in America that killed students and killed their children, this is the data from the Bureau of Justice in America. This is by white shooters. This is by ethnic minorities. No one says that in America they have a white Christian shooting problem because they know crime has no faith, they know crime has no race, and they know that it is individuals who need to be brought to justice.
Okay, so right out the gate, watch what Piers Morgan is doing here. And this is something I genuinely respect because he's not screaming, he's not throwing insults back, he's doing something way more dangerous to a bigot. He's asking for specifics, and specifics are the kryptonite of every single hateful talking point on this planet. Because Valentina Gomez walks onto that stage like she's got the whole world figured out, and Piers asks her one simple question: how many Muslims are there in the world? And she cannot answer it. Not because the number is hard to find, you can Google it in 2 seconds. The number is roughly 2 billion. She can't answer it because the moment she gives a real number, she has to confront the scale of the people she's slandering.
2 billion human beings.
That's a quarter of the planet. And she's standing there branding every single one of them with the same disgusting brush. When Piers said this, you are tearing all 2 billion people with the same brush of being killers and rapists and so on. That is the pure personification of vile bigotry, racism, and Islamophobia that landed because it's true. You can disagree with theology, you can critique any religion, that's fair game in a free society. But the second you start slapping a criminal label on every follower of a faith, you have crossed into something that history has shown us over and over leads to horrific outcomes. And then Sammy Hamdi steps in with the receipts, and this is the part where I want you to pay attention because this is how you destroy a bigoted argument with facts, not feelings. He pulls up actual data from the Office for National Statistics in the UK and the Bureau of Justice in the United States. And what does the data say? The overwhelming majority of crimes against women are committed by people they know, family, friends, acquaintances. Not strangers, not gangs, not foreigners. When Sammy said this, nobody says this is a white Christian sexual epidemic. That line is so important because it exposes the double standard. When the perpetrator is white and Christian, suddenly the conversation becomes about the individual. They were a bad person. They were sick. But the moment the perpetrator is a minority, suddenly the entire community gets dragged into it. And here's something a lot of people don't realize. This exact rhetorical pattern has been used against every immigrant group in history. The Irish were called dangerous criminals when they came to America. Italians were treated the same way. Jewish communities have been blood-libeled for centuries. The pattern repeats. The target changes. The bigotry stays.
Well, let me ask you this question, Sammy Hamdi. Let me ask you, Sammy Hamdi. Sammy Hamdi, I understand the point you're making. It doesn't in any way, it doesn't in any way excuse the appalling way that the grooming gang scandal was handled, or the failure of our justice system to bring those perpetrators who were almost exclusively in that scandal case. They were British Pakistani men. It doesn't excuse any of that, but you make a valid point about the totality of statistics. My question for Sammy Hamdi is about Valentina Gomez. Would you have allowed her into the UK?
Piers, part of me believes that it would have been good for Valentina to come and see the real Britain. The Britain that belongs to the family that I am in. The English blood that runs through my kids from Stenning, Brighton. It would have been good for her to come and meet the wonderful giants of Britain who are Muslim, like Timothy Winter in Cambridge, like Paul Williams, like Paul Keeler, like Suhail Hanif. It would have been good for her to see the realities of what Britain is like and how Muslims live in Britain and contribute to society. Because when Tucker Carlson finally saw it, instead of regurgitating the hate that he was doing in 2001, Tucker Carlson came out and said, I was wrong and I didn't know that Muslims love Jesus too and they believe in the second coming. When Candace finally got to see the reality, she came out and said that I was disgusted with myself for not looking in further. I believe Valentina is still young. She's in the early stages of what Tucker Carlson was. I'm asking her, skip the years that it takes to figure it out. Go and see what the world looks like. Go and see the reality, because your message of hate didn't work. Abdul Sayed, the Senate candidate for Michigan, a right-winger, turned up in his rally and told him, I'm here as a right-winger. Abdul Sayed put his hand on his heart and said that I am so glad you're here. I'm so glad we can talk with one another. I'm so glad that we're standing together. Marjorie Taylor Greene says this is no longer a battle between left and right. This is a battle for America first. And the final point, Piers, I'll finish on this. Valentina's brother serves in US forces. That Valentina, instead of focusing on the 1% of American Muslims who aren't the problem in America, perhaps she should focus on the 42 million Americans living on SNAP who can't afford basic groceries. She should focus on the servicemen who return to America and sit in the freezing cold on Magnificent Mile in Chicago. She should focus on those ordinary Americans going bankrupt as a result of medical bills. There's a reason she was rejected in Texas, because no one resonates with that hate. There's a reason why she was rejected in Texas, because no one buys the hate anymore.
Now this next stretch is where the conversation pivots in a really fascinating way, and I want to break down why Sammy Hamdi's response is actually a masterclass in how to handle hate without becoming hateful yourself. Because Piers asks him a direct question, would you have allowed Valentina into the UK? And his answer is not what you would expect. He doesn't say lock her out. He doesn't say silence her. He says, and listen to this carefully, that part of him believes it would have been good for Valentina to come and see the real Britain, to meet actual Muslims, to witness what the community looks like in person, not through a hate-filled algorithm feeding her selective clips. When Sammy said this, when Tucker Carlson finally saw it, instead of regurgitating the hate, Carlson came out and said I was wrong and I didn't know that Muslims love Jesus too. That is the moment that should make every single hateful influencer pause. Because Tucker Carlson, who I disagree with on basically everything, did something rare. He encountered reality and he updated his beliefs. That's what an honest person does. And the fact that he could do it means anyone can do it. And then Sammy says something that genuinely surprised me. He calls Valentina young. He says, I believe Valentina is still young. She's in the early stages of what Tucker Carlson was. I'm asking her, skip the years that it takes to figure it out. That is grace. That is offering an off-ramp to someone who just spent the entire interview insulting his religion. Most people would not do that. Most people would dunk and walk away. Sammy is offering a hand. But the part that really hit for me is when he pivots to the actual issues that matter. Because look, this whole performative hate spectacle Valentina is doing, it's a distraction. It's a magic trick. While she's busy yelling about a 1% population that has nothing to do with anyone's grocery bill, the actual problems are getting ignored. Sammy said this, she should focus on the 42 million Americans living on SNAP who can't afford basic groceries. 42 million. That is more than the entire population of Canada. People who go to bed hungry in the wealthiest country in human history. Servicemen who come back from war and end up freezing on the streets. Families going bankrupt because someone got sick. That is what should be making people angry. And when Sammy said this, there's a reason she was rejected in Texas, because no one resonates with that hate. That's not just a one-liner, that is the data speaking. She lost her primary by 49 points. Texas voters, who are not exactly known for being soft on cultural issues, looked at what she was selling and said no thank you. Even in the reddest state in the country, the hate didn't move the needle. And that should tell you something profound about where the public actually is.
What wins in America, what wins in the UK, the reason reform lost in Gorton and Denton is because Zach Polanski came with a message of hope. In America, Mamdani came with a message of hope.
The UK
and even Donald
Muslims.
Trump is. Even Donald Trump.
Before
the truth is, even Donald Trump, when he won the election, declared that he had established the biggest coalition of Muslims and Arab Americans.
We've run out of time. I just want to say, Sammy Hamdi, that's enough, please. I would simply say to Valentina Gomez that sometimes when people show themselves, you should believe them when they show you. And your reaction to the English-born Home Secretary of my country, Shabana Mahmood, who's a diligent, hard-working, intelligent, decent person born in Birmingham in the Midlands of my country. Your reaction to her, calling her a dirty Pakistani Muslim, was one of the most disgusting things I've seen or heard in a very long time, and it showed you for what you are. You are a disgusting, Islamophobic bigot that hates 2 billion people on this planet simply because of their religion.
They hate me too.
And shame on you.
They hate people like me. They hate people like you. They hate people
like
your
wife. No, we don't hate you. We feel sorry for you. We don't hate you.
You're only back.
I promise we don't hate you.
You're only back on this program. You're only back on this program because you were banned from my country. I say good on you, Home Secretary.
Because my message,
you're a more decent person
because my
than Valentina Gomez could ever dream of being.
I wouldn't be
I'm going to leave it there. Thank you both very much for your contribution to this debate.
This is the moment I've been waiting for the entire interview, because watching Piers Morgan deliver that closing verdict was honestly one of the most cathartic things I've seen on television in a long time. And I want to talk about why it matters, not just the words, but what it represents. Sammy sets it up beautifully when he points out the reason reform lost in Gordon and Denton is because Zach Polanski came with a message of hope, and that's the thesis of the entire panel right there. Hope sells. Hate doesn't. Voters across the UK and the United States have been screaming this at politicians for years, and the ones who listen win. The ones who don't lose, no matter how loud they shout. And then Piers takes the floor and he doesn't hold back. When he said this, sometimes when people show themselves, you should believe them when they show you. That's a quote that's been around for a long time, and it has never been more relevant than in this moment. Because Valentina spent the entire interview showing everyone exactly who she is. She wasn't ambushed, she wasn't tricked. She walked in, she opened her mouth, and she revealed everything. When Piers said this, you are a disgusting Islamophobic bigot that hates 2 billion people on this planet simply because of their religion, that wasn't an insult, that was an observation. That was a verdict. And he had every receipt to back it up because she said the words herself on camera. You can't claim you're being misrepresented when the tape is rolling. But the part that genuinely moved me was when Piers turned the moment around to honor the British Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, who Valentina had insulted with a slur. He pointed out that she was born in Birmingham. She is as English as anyone. She is a public servant who works hard and represents her country with dignity. And when Piers said, "You're a more decent person than Valentina Gomez could ever dream of being," that was him drawing the line. That is what this country looks like. That is who we are. And bigotry doesn't get to redefine that for us. The truth is, this whole exchange is a snapshot of where the political conversation actually is right now. There's a loud, angry, hateful minority who think volume equals victory. And there's a much bigger silent majority who are just tired of it. Tired of being told to fear their neighbors. Tired of being told that the person at the grocery store, the person teaching their kids, the person serving in their military is somehow the enemy. Most people just want to live their lives, raise their families, and be left alone. That's it. So what do you guys think of this? Leave your thoughts down in the comments, please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.